Welcome into Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and it is cutting day in the NFL. Teams are getting to their final 53-man roster positions, and the Seahawks are no different. A big trade today sent an offensive lineman away, as well as some other roster moves that we're going to get into on today's show. Some players getting cut that, frankly, I wish they were still on the roster. Then we're going to get into Jalen Milroe and how Seattle is going to use him. Mike Macdonald, in his press conference yesterday, kind of gave a hint to how Seattle plans on using him throughout the regular season. You're going to want to make sure that you stick around and see how Seattle plans to use Milroe. But I got to congratulate you, 12s. I issued a challenge to you last week. We were going up against Packers Report on who could get the most subscribers new to join the channel, and we absolutely dominated Joey. Didn't matter that he took his shirt off during the live because we won the war. I want to say thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. And remember, if you have friends who love the Seattle Seahawks who aren't subscribed yet, make sure that they hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get into the show. All right, so the final or first move that really started the avalanche of Seattle Seahawks roster moves today was Tom Pelissero tweeting out that Seattle had traded Michael Jerrell to the Atlanta Falcons for a conditional 2027 first-round pick. Now, you're going to want to make sure that you are subscribed to the show. We've already plugged it because as soon as that news broke, I put out a short on this channel breaking down all the latest news and information surrounding that trade. Obviously, yesterday I came out and I said that I believed Michael Jerrell would make this final 53-man roster when I gave my roster projection. So I was a bit surprised to see that he was traded to the Atlanta Falcons and for a 2027 seventh-round pick. That is a little bit surprising. As you kind of go more into the roster moves in Atlanta, you understand that they've had some injuries over at their tackle positions. Caleb McGarry's going through an injury. So it does make sense why they would be looking for a player like Jerrell. Obviously, he's in his second year in the NFL, a D2 player, just like yours truly. He just might be a little bit better than me, or a lot of it. Depends on what your opinion is. But what he's going to do by heading over to Atlanta is become their swing tackle, which I thought he'd be kind of over here. Obviously, I know that Jones has played well in Charles Cross's absence. He's had higher PFF grades, but I still did expect Jerrell to make this team. You can never have enough tackles. It's such a hard position to find an athlete in, and Jerrell really is that. He's also a player that could project inside. So as we look at this offensive line depth chart now for the Seahawks, my next question is, where will Seattle go? I had this team projected as having 9 offensive linemen. I don't know if you can do quick math, but I can. As I'm looking through the backups, you have Cable Dew there as a guard, Oluwatimi as your backup center. He's also a guy who could bounce around and play any of the interior 3 positions. But you also have Jones as well at that tackle spot. This, to me, confirms that Seattle is going to go and find a veteran player that gets waived or cut by another team and bring them in. We've already seen them work out Dalton Reisner. Don't be shocked if you see more workouts for future potential Seattle Seahawks. Now, as I go over the PFF grades for Jerrell, look, he grades out like a backup. He grades out like a player who should be that 4th tackle on a roster. He grades out as a player who in pass pro needs some work. I would expect a D2 kid to need some work in pass pro. You're used to going up against a smaller, slower player. Now you're going up against some speedsters. In run blocking, frankly, if you're grading out at below 50%, that's not very good. So clearly Kubiak and McDonald did not see him translating into this run-first offense, and they felt like they could at least get some value. In the preseason, look, he started off hot against Las Vegas. That's great grades there coming out for Jerrell. Now the issue is you see him moving back over. He's getting some right tackle snaps. He's getting less of those snaps against Kansas City. Doesn't perform quite as well, although his pass pro did look clean. Against Green Bay, he really struggled. A lot of that offensive line unit struggled. Makes me wonder if that was kind of the final nail in the coffin for Jerrell. And instead of cutting him, what Seattle did and what Seattle did smartly is John Schneider started calling teams that needed tackles, and hey, what do you know? He found a landing spot for Jerrell where you as a Seattle Seahawks fan, I know, I get it. It's a 2027 7th-round pick. that's still going to be a potential important player for your roster. You've done pretty well with late round draft picks in the John Schneider era, I would say. So who knows? Maybe that turns into something. At least you got some value out of it. Now, there are some additional roster cuts that have come out at the time of filming this video. Obviously, the heartbreaker for me, Alfonso Tupatala, the local kid, Federal Way, UW Husky. He's a linebacker, had a big sack against Green Bay. I don't know that he necessarily projects as a potential practice squad guy, but I also don't know that he doesn't project as that. He's the type of kid that came in a little bit later on in your preseason training camp. He was, against all odds to make this team. Didn't end up being able to do that. I still think he showed an impressive array of skills that Seattle might be able to use later on. Now, the one that hurts me deep down inside, Damein Martinez, running back. I was shocked that he was one of the first announced as one of Seattle's roster moves and roster cuts. In my eyes, obviously, it feels like Seattle's going to go with 3 running backs. They're going to go with Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, and with Holani. I still think there's an outside shot for Jacardier Wright. In my eyes, I'd rather have Damein Martinez. He's young, he's big, he's strong, he's physical, and he can grow. I understand that his pass pro leaves a lot to be desired. There's still moves for him to make in there. I've already got Cowboys fans in my DMs. I've already got fans across the NFL in my DMs asking, hey, what are you doing with Damein Martinez? There's no way he's going to make it back to you on your practice squad. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Obviously, you have 3 DBs that have been moved on from. Jarek Reed II. In my eyes, this solidifies that Ty Okuda is going to make the roster just like I had projected in our latest video over on Seahawks Today. It feels like in that safety position, they wanted a bunch of players that could do a variety of things, and Okuda just has outperformed Reed II. Jarek Reed II has had a good career in the NFL as well. You might remember him as being one of a top special teams performers in 2023. Now, I want to get into the news from yesterday because I do think it's important to expand on this. I don't want to just have you come in here and talk about roster cuts and roster moves because, one, it's going to make Jordan Schultz sad. He thinks that every NFL player should get to make the team. I guess that's how they do participation trophies in the Starbucks household. But it's also important to let you know how Seattle plans to use Jalen Milroe. And Mike Macdonald made it clear in his presser the other day that Milroe is going to have a package designed for him. He is going to be used with the Seahawks during the regular season. I agree with this. Jalen Milroe is a weapon. I understand that his preseason performances were up and down, and we're going to get into the Green Bay game because there are some negatives in there. Obviously, I've been very vocal about the negatives. There are some good things, though, that he did in that game as well. Now, with Milroe, I think if you dummy down the playbook and you have him for 5 to 10 plays, you can see a lot more of these strengths as opposed to a lot of his weaknesses. And this stat 4 here is going to show you there's some good things and there's some bad things too. 148 passing yards, 31 rushing yards. That's not terrible. For a rookie, raw quarterback that is known for, hey, his athleticism, not necessarily, the football IQ needs to continue to grow and grow. That's not saying that he's not smart. It's just saying there are things that, frankly, he wasn't taught yet or hasn't been able to fully grasp. I was impressed with what he was able to do in the second half. That first half was atrocious. The Green Bay Packers lived in the backfield against that offensive line, against Milroe. He had a couple fumbles early in that game as well, and instead of sitting there down in the dumps moping around like I would be, Jalen Milroe said, that's fine. I'm going to come out and make the next play. Short-term memory, and I do love that. Now, obviously, we have the turnovers up on the screen. He had 3 of them. All 3 of them were fumbles. That is worrisome. At the same time, he made a couple great throws over to Cody White, got a touchdown out of that, and I think you're going to be able to use his legs a lot more than they have in the past with the package that they are going to bring up for him. I think you are going to see Jalen Milroe continue to grow and grow as a football player. He is an element to this roster with his Kubiak system that needs to be used. And I think he's going to get some essential reps against real NFL talent, not just scout team reps that he's going to get in practice because McDonald said he's still going to run the scout team, but against real teams in real game action for a certain number of plays in a certain package, he will be used. This is great for his long-term development and growth, And when you have a player that is as athletic as Jalen Milroe, you need to get him on the field and use him when you can. Now, don't get me wrong. He has a lot of things that he needs to fix, and I've been very vocal on that. But if you head over to my Twitter, @WillOrtner, all lowercase, you're going to see a tweet on there where I said he made a lot of mistakes, but I love his mindset, and I love how he's handling the position, and I'm rooting for him. Not only am I rooting for my Seahawks, I'm rooting for Jalen Milroe. Are you? Are you rooting for Jalen Milroe? Head into the chat, spam 6, because we want the kid to grow. He seems like a great kid, smart head on his shoulders. There's just some things he needs to clean up, and I think he can totally clean those things up. Spam 6 in the comment section if you are excited for Jalen Milroe, just like I am. There's going to be roster moves aplenty. We'll have a video that breaks down the final 53-man roster once all the cuts are finished and wrapped up today. So make sure you come back and check out that video. But until then, I'll see you next time.